Welcome back. CyberSpace. Empirical trading.
Do you know what I mean? So like, they're like, let's go.
Hello, welcome back to the CyberSpace podcast. This is a podcast for people trying to get into cybersecurity, people already working in cybersecurity, or people who are just interested in being a little bit more secure in their daily lives. My name's Josh. I'm your host. I'm one member of Empirical Training, and I've got a full house today. We've got all of the Empirical trainers. So say hello after I mention your name. We'll go through quick. We've got AJ, Incident Response Specialist.
Hello. Welcome back. I missed the last week's podcast, and I know you had a good guest on there, but it's good to be back as a foursome.
Yeah. Calm down, AJ. We'll talk to you in a minute properly. Robbie, our SOC leader.
Yes, sir. What's happening?
Vaughan, automation specialist, as well as a SOC lead.
Hello, everyone.
And so, AJ, you've been on holiday. You clearly want to tell us a lot about that. So, should we start there before we get into the topics, or do you want me to tease the audience? They know what to expect.
Yeah, we need a little tease, I reckon.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't go on holiday, so I don't know what to talk about.
Oh yeah, just on holiday from the podcast. I get you. So this week's episode, we're gonna take a look at the kind of some key stories from the last week. I'm always hesitant to say it's all the key stories because that would be a 5-hour podcast potentially. But we've got some ransomware actors in the news. After last week, we talked about maybe ransomware actors shifting their tactics. So we're going to look at some traditional, good old-fashioned ransomware up against a dialysis firm, so kidney specialists. We're also going to look at a little bit of China versus the US, escalation potentially from the trade war as China names and shames US hackers, a tactic we haven't really seen from them previously. And we're also going to look at another breach. Hertz they were breached end of last year, but some more information has come out there. And finally, we're going to take a little look at some advice from the FBI. In fact, I'm going to do a little game of quiz the boys or do a bit of bingo and get them to guess the recommendations. I've made sure they haven't seen this article. So FBI have come out and given a load of recommendations of how to be more secure. And I want to see if we can guess what the advice of the FBI or even do better than it. So, Andy, you've been away. You didn't go on holiday though, so what do you? Not much
I
to
didn't
say.
go on holiday. No, I was just busy that evening. I couldn't join the podcast, unfortunately. I didn't do anything that fun.
Yeah, well, me and Robbie had a good time with Andrew, didn't we, Rob?
Yeah, it was great, mate. I'm always just enjoying those types of podcasts where, different people, different roles that we don't really have much exposure to. So yeah, learning about application security and all the tooling that he uses, and he's just a great guy, and we had a lovely time, didn't we?
Mm-hmm. And interesting, the viewers won't have heard that episode yet because I'm holding that one back for next week. But they would have heard us talk about getting his view on some of the news stories. So yeah, a lot more to come from Andrew, and yeah, I hope AJ and Vaughan don't feel too upset that Robbie said we had such a great time with him. But it was nice to have a new opinion, a new perspective on the pod.
Things are
like
right now.
Yeah, and there was another Andrew on there anyway, so I guess the audience wouldn't have noticed any difference. So they'll just think it's me.
Well, the live chat, they're all just saying better Andrew. He was the better Andrew. That Andrew is way better than the one you've got now.
He is, to be fair. I can't really disagree.
Okay, great. Well, let's. The chat didn't say that. They're much kinder than I am. Okay, let's start us off then with. So I think the ransomware actor. We talked last week about the ransomware a group called Hunters International, which we thought was an interesting name. Formerly the Hive ransomware as a service strain, fully abandoning encryption of devices and saying we're going to be a data exfiltration tool, and that's what we're going to focus on because that's where the money is, and we think it's a bit easier, basically. Which we discussed as maybe if that's this general shift of where ransomware is going from the good old-fashioned encryption, and I won't give you back the key. Vaughan, AJ, first time you've heard that, does that data exfiltration? I think is probably overtaking the actual objective when it comes to ransomware now, although we still call it ransomware.
The data exfiltration is kind of the two-pronged approach, right? For the extortion, the ransomware, and they threaten to post it publicly with the exfiltration as well. So are they losing part of that kind of emphasis, I guess, if they're not doing the ransomware and just exfiltrating? Is it going to be as effective?
Yeah, well, I think that's probably, we think that people have gone a lot better at backing up or segmenting their network. So actually getting to a point where you can encrypt enough machines is harder than getting to a point where you find some really sensitive data or data store. So I think it's just a bit of get in there quicker, quick grab and smash, and you can probably do more actors.
Is that a win for the blue team?
I think we can attribute it to one as well. Yeah, they're evolving or turning to different techniques. But yeah, the extortion, end of the day, data, you can't get it back once it's taken. You can't re-image it in the same way you can a compromised machine and start from scratch. Somebody's national insurance number or social security number is out there, and they can't really change that. So yeah, I think that's why it's a stronger angle for the extortion actors, let's say, rather than the ransomware actors.
Yeah, the ROI has got to be a lot higher in that situation, isn't it? Because like you said, if you got your system set up correctly, and even if data is encrypted, there's probably backups, or like I said, they've segmented their network in a way that it potentially doesn't matter. Whereas, if there's sensitive information that's gone out there onto the clear web or the dark web, like some social security numbers, then you can't take that back. Somebody's already got that data. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it also goes to the specialization. Like we've seen the people becoming initial access brokers who specialize in gaining initial access and then selling it to somebody else who can do something with said access. And the ransomware as a service people specializing in ransomware strains. But hey, this is more specialized. That's saying we're not going to have a setup or a piece of malware that can do all of the tactics of a ransomware. I'm just going to focus on data exfiltration. You think they're probably going to get better at exfiltration with that specialization as well. So a win, but also a word of warning, Vaughan, eh? Yeah, don't worry. I'll put you on the big screen just to smile. It's fine. That's for our visual watchers. We have the spotlight was on Vaughan then for no reason. So the story I just wanted to quickly cover off is DaVita. So they are, I'd not heard of them, but they are a dialysis clinic. And they got hit with the good old fashioned ransomware, which was essentially has 3,000 outpatient clinics, and they were impacted quite heavily. And it's just really the data was stolen of 500,000 patients and former patients too. So it's the encryption and the data stealing. So it's the double whammy. But yeah, I think this just really marks a continued trend in 2025 of the attacks on healthcare organizations. And I don't know if you guys have worked with any healthcare organizations, any discussions about that, but they do seem to be really in the spotlight.
I've got a really morbid take on this.
Yeah.
But is this the angle? So are they targeting dialysis companies where the patients, with all due respect, they kind of are on their last legs, some of them. So the personal identifiable data, like that sensitive information pertaining to an individual, is that used then to steal identities? And because if somebody's on dialysis and maybe they're not gonna make it, then they can use that to, I don't know, take out loans or whatever.
Yeah, it'd be
That's
interesting to know
what
they are doing with the information, because you mentioned that they ransomwared the company itself, but it doesn't really say anything about what they do with the data, does it? Rather than just trying to extort the company. I know this has come up a few times, but you're scumbags if you're targeting medical.
Yeah,
we've
that's
told
what I was
that.
going to say. What sort of dirt bag?
Yeah,
Actually, ransomware is freaking hospitals, right? Come on, get a grip.
Well, I mean, I did really like Rob's angle there. Initially, I thought, is Rob going to say something that's a bit scumbaggy here? But actually, you got me pull it back in the second half. And I think that's a really interesting take that I haven't heard before, that, there's got to be a window where people die and their stuff gets wound down and whatnot. So they kind of capitalize on that and take out the loans or commit fraud without the person either being around to kind of respond to it when they get letters through the door, or having bigger fish to fry, bigger things on their plate at that moment. So that's an interesting take on it. Any other reason on hospitals? Because there's a few I think we discussed before, but it's worth reiterating them.
Well, and they're government backed as well, so there's more chance that they would actually pay a ransom just because they're backed by government and then they're not a private entity.
Well, this one is in the States. I should have said that. So
Oh, maybe it is, but they've got money, so
Yeah.
I
They
think-
got recurring customers with the
they've
dialysis.
got recurring customers as
I
well.
probably should say people can have very long and healthy lives on dialysis as well. It just can be an inconvenience, but
True.
yeah.
I'm not sure if it's a trend in the US as well, but I know UK-based hospitals are severely, I don't say downgraded, but they're under the spec they should be, right? They're often we're running like Windows XP or Windows 7, maybe end-of-life systems, so maybe they're just easier targets in general as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. There's going to be an element of that, like the way that they work and the way their systems are probably hastily put up and like quick fixes deployed by IT because it directly impacts people's quality of life or care, perhaps. So even though they should be much better funded, right? Because we all hear the stories of how much it costs to get treatment in America. But yeah, we've got one more comment from chat, which I think rounds us off nicely. That valuable records that is needed instantly, otherwise it impacts people's lives and potentially they die. So yeah, I think that's one of the real bottom lines as well, that there's a ticking clock on them needing access to their systems again or needing the data back, which just makes them more likely to pay. So I think perfect storm, really, isn't it, healthcare?
Yeah, and I think there was another comment there. They're too busy, medical companies, treating people and just trying to run their business and stay afloat and cope with the demand. Cybersecurity is often left by the wayside. And then they've got ingrained processes and systems and tooling that they just can't rip out, because then that also affects business.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the medical systems as well, like Vaughan was saying, even they might be running outdated software like Windows, but even the medical systems, I think, are quite difficult to update, or they're worried about updating them because they're constantly using them. And if it causes an error, then they might not be able to serve patients. So yeah, I can see it being quite a difficult kind of business to protect, really.
We've had another question come in that is asking about how do they kind of get in, and this is one of those stories that's so new. They've only just disclosed it, that they haven't really disclosed how they got in. They may well not know at this point. They are under obligation when they lose data to disclose within 72 hours, I believe. So that's what they've kind of done here. So more to come, perhaps. But also, if anyone's able to find more information that we've missed, jump in the chat, or we'll add it on at the end of the episode. But I didn't see any juice around that, hence why we're kind of talking more about the motives instead.
Wouldn't be surprised if it was phishing, if it wasn't phishing, but we'll see.
Compromised credentials, still one of the easiest ways to walk in the front door of an organization. But I wonder if physical stuff as well, like in hospitals. I think we talked about that before. There's a lot of exposed USB holes, ports.
But in a hospital, I don't know if you boys have ever found this, but you can just aimlessly wander around a hospital and no one really says anything to you. Obviously, there's going to be certain rooms where you walk in and people will say, you're not supposed to be in here. But there's also people walking around in scrubs, and then some people are non-uniform. And if you carry yourself with the right level of confidence, you can pretty much get in anywhere you want, as long as you've
it's
got
funny you say
access or you're tailgating,
Yeah, we're actually friends with somebody that sells bladder scanners, and I was asking, how do you actually go about actually selling these and speaking to doctors? And he just says, I just walk into the hospital and go and directly and speak to them. There's no like trying to set up a meeting or trying to get in contact.
Can you
with
imagine
them.
if a sales guy could just walk into your work and start trying to sell to you?
Yeah.
I would get annoyed with the emails and phone calls.
Yeah, I know.
Well, from the old-fashioned ransomware, good to see they are still using the encryption methods, and I wonder if maybe it will be more used on organizations like the healthcare ones there that need more access to their systems quicker and haven't got the same resiliency. But there's a data exfiltration, pure data exfiltration attack that occurred on Hertz, the car rental company. Believe it happened the end of the year, but they just come out with kind of more information. I
wonder if it's hurt their bottom line.
It's gotta. It's like that joke did hurts me a little bit.
Tough crowd. Chat, give me a W.
It's just because you go from really chill and serious to that, and it just comes from nowhere.
Rate that joke in the chat out of 10, everyone.
Yeah, rate that one.
Yeah, we're getting engaged today, as I like it. So yeah, another quick one, I think. But this seems to be a exploitation of a 0-day vulnerability within Cleo's platform, which is a managed file transfer. There's present in October to December. I think initially it was talked about in October, and then around about December we saw a proof of concept out there that it really exploded. Sorry, so I don't know when they were a victim of it, but yeah, it's social security numbers and government identification of a small number. You hear the air quotes there, but also things like Medicare and Medicaid. So I think it's a really high extent of the sensitive information out here. 3,400 people are being notified, and Hertz will have to pay. Well, they are paying monitoring services for them, which just kind of what I wanted to talk about really, the kind of the cost of data breaches. Right, there's a lot of hidden costs that come with this. So. Yeah, well, do you guys have that conversation with people when they're trying to take security seriously? Do you ever have to bring it down to like, here's how much it could cost you guys if you do get compromised?
Yeah, funnily enough, we had a demo today at my corporate company with a new product. We're not sponsors, so I'm not giving any shout outs. With a product that does surface scanning assessments, so it can tell whether your website has content security policy not installed, or like DKIM set up incorrectly, or SPF hard fail and all that type of stuff. But to your point,
Email
Josh,
security.
email security. Yeah, to your point, Josh, one of the things it has on there is somehow, I don't know how, I think it may be like industry trends, but it's got a cost to you for being ransomware. So just from the surface scanning, it gives you an estimation of how much money you might lose or be impacted by if you get ransomware, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. So that's a sales tool, is it, to try and connect it to?
Yeah, so we're looking to do it for pre-sales and our advisory team that provide like a health checks and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's supposed to be like a nice to know sort of thing, I guess. I can't see having massive value in the SOC.
Yeah. They don't care. They just want to stop whatever's happening, whether it costs nothing or billions. But the IBM cost of a data breach is the one I often lean to, which I always feel that they're inflated. Maybe that's just because the averages, there are a few giant beasts of an orgs that kind of pull it up. So I never like to say, here's the average cost, so it's going to cost you that much. I say, here's what it could cost. Where do you think it would kind of cost you in that region of? But I think there's so many hidden costs, right? Like to ransomware, you got to pay the ransom. Or in this case, the exfiltration date, the data ransom, whatever that is. Yeah. Reputation damage, can't quantify that. The monitoring, the monitoring costs $10 to $30 a month and I don't know how long they have to do it for, but I assume at least a year, especially if it's like this level of sensitive information to make sure they aren't frauded. It all stacks up, and then there's
incident response as well, and forensics probably back to back potentially.
Particularly the third party.
Correct me if I'm wrong as well, Josh. If you do pay the ransomware, do you also get fined by the government or whichever legal body kind of oversees that? Because the recommendation is that you don't pay it.
The recommendation is that you don't pay it. I don't think we're there yet, but I'm Googling it because I would have been buzzing if that was the case.
You slap a fine on top of paying the ransom. That's brutal.
A fine for not paying, yeah.
Or a fine for paying.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. Fine for paying.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, well, the AI Gemini says there may be. So, yeah, there might be some scenarios. I think it's not as simple yes or no.
Twice.
But I mean, yeah, that is a good solution, though, right? Like, instead of paying the ransomware, have a government agency that jumps in. You pay them an extortionate amount of money, but then they can use that money to reinvest in their own cybersecurity, or in this kind of just-in-time cybersecurity savior little Avengers org, like we've talked about before, that drop in when you most need them. Or then would people just rely on that too much? Or it's a hard world, isn't it?
CyberSpace.
This one really stood out to me because we've talked a few times about like the US administration, and we talk strictly in cybersecurity terms, but geopolitics, things that happen in the world have a direct impact onto cybersecurity, and this might be one of those, because we are seeing the Chinese state has named and shamed US hackers, calling out 3 alleged NSA agents, which maybe it's because I'm not subscribed to Chinese language forums, and maybe they do talk about it more there. But this is the first time I've seen them call out in this way. I've seen like the US and Western governments call out state-linked actors, individuals. But
yeah, and this is quite timely as well, because if I remember rightly, maybe 2 or 3 podcasts ago, we was talking about blue team versus red team, and how you don't really see much about like UK and US red teams like that are actually going out there and doing these geopolitical attacks. So yeah, it's almost perfect timing, really.
Yeah, because they just quietly don't talk about it to each other, because I mean that's why I'm trying to. What is the benefit here? What are they trying to go for that reason they would now want to talk about it? And I think it has to come back to this kind of trade war that they're currently in, the tariff war. That's like, hey, you guys aren't all squeaky clean, as you like to say as well. You know, you've got people in our systems also. Some of the scenarios here I wasn't even aware of from. Do you want me to list them out? What the red team operations?
Please.
Yeah.
So we've got they've pursuing these NSA agents. They've offered a reward for their whereabouts as well, so it's piling on the pressure. But they've named. I won't read the names out. I don't feel that serves anyone anything good here. But their claims that they were working for the NSA and they did some espionage and attacks on the Chinese Winter Games that occurred. Okay. They use typical APT tactics where they purchase IP addresses from various countries under the guise of fake businesses, so they can attack them not from the US but from like Europe and Asia. And there's the other thing that they said they did. Am I in the wrong article? Yeah, what do you guys think of here you are, hacking Chinese IT infrastructure and the Chinese company Huawei? Because I know there was a few years ago big focus on Huawei because they were in a lot of telecom deals in the UK at least, and they had to be ousted because of security concerns. Yeah, but we were hacking it, or the West was hacking it as well. Is that you never know if it's retaliatory, and that's how they found out that there's black holes in there, or if we're just saying, hey, if we can hack it, we know the Chinese government can because they've got even more levers to pull. So yeah, what do you think about this, Vaughan? You see you nodding away.
Yeah, the one thing that kind of piques my interest and interests me more than anything is with these IP addresses that are being bought, the infrastructure that's being used, it would be great to see if they could tie it back to a particular APT group, because we hear about nation-backed groups from like Russia and North Korea and all these sorts of places, but like we was talking about the other podcast, it must be UK and US backed nation states to some degree, and it'd be really cool to hear that, you know, APT 47, just a random one, I don't know if it's real, but that one is actually like the US government. I'd love that to kind of come to light. That'd be super interesting.
Yeah, well, I think they do a degree of it. Like it's you never, I think, say you never know. Like security companies, so typically security researchers are the ones out there, and they are really. If you've ever worked with researchers, it's like this suggests that this indicates that it's likely to be, China or Russia, or whatever. But yeah, I think to your point there, right? They're really good at scrubbing their tracks. So just because it's Chinese IP addresses, I sometimes think that like CrowdStrike are too quick to rush and use their Panda nomenclature or their Bear nomenclature with the geographical ties that kind of suggests, because who's just they're deliberately trying to hide where they are from, right? Particularly the sophisticated ones. But here's another question I have, right? I was listening to a Sands talk, and he said, I won't claim this for my own, but that actually I think he was quoting an APT or a CISA, or an NSA, also government security agencies, that they aren't the most sophisticated attackers, but they are the most patient. And that kind of talks to me about the persistence. Like I always focus on the advanced part, but actually it's the fact that they've got the patience and persistence to sit down and wait for weeks, days, years, and know they've got budget behind them. They don't have to monetize stuff to actually then pounce at the right moment. So, yeah, what would you guys think? Persistence versus advance. What's your focus on when it comes to those actors?
How do they keep track of it? Do you reckon they've got like a OneNote of different IP addresses they've hacked and like the company's name next to it or something?
Yeah, I wonder. Somebody leaves and they've forgotten who's got.
Yeah, like who is this IP address, guys?
There's got to be a level of that, right? Where am I? They got a big case management system, Robbie. Like they put them in like customers into their Zendesk or whatever.
I wouldn't put it past them. I think they probably would have something like that. That's like that level of organization.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, AJ, what do you think about this kind of persistence thing? Because it got me thinking about, yeah, like even if I think I'm doing absolutely everything right, there's going to be a day where I spin up something that I didn't mean to make publicly accessible and you can stride into, or maybe one of my domains, I didn't pay the bill and it goes out of license and someone else is able to like re-register it or grab it. So it kind of, we often talk about how sometimes it's the basics that the actual real world attacks are. They aren't always 0-day exploits. Yeah, persistence versus advanced.
Yeah, no, I think that all companies should always assume that they've been compromised. Like we say, that attackers can often only need to be right once, or if they're persistent, they can continue to knock on your door. And then once they're right, they're ultimately
or wait in a bush right next to your door until you come home and open it for them.
Exactly, yeah. So they could just jumping out of a bush or climbing through your front window. If you haven't secured everything, then they're likely going to get in. But with persistence, that you still have to have the kind of instant response processes enabled, and you need to be able to actually enact on them. And even if they're persistent and you've got a good instant response process and they get in, there's still a chance that you could stop them from getting to the crown jewel. So yeah, persistent attackers are all well and good, but you can still defend yourself even if they get into the network as well.
Great. So I think that it's an interesting development, this in the cyber threat landscape. Yeah, I'll probably want to end it with a quote from the the Chinese Foreign Ministry. Before I do that, they also claimed that there were some universities who were involved in assisting this, which, you know, it's all murky, right? That could be linked or not linked, could just be coincidence. So as always, we have to kind of caveat what we're talking about here. But I want to add on this quote from the Foreign Ministry spokesperson of China. We urge the US to take a responsible attitude on the cybersecurity issue and stop any attack, including cyber attack, and groundless vilifications against China. China will continue to do what is necessary to protect its own cybersecurity. So this, for me, is a big shift in how I've never heard them talk outwardly about cybersecurity previously. Certainly not like this.
Yeah, I don't really know how it helps to out some of the US hackers and name them. I guess it could dissuade certain people from even trying, because then they could get put on blast and put on the spotlight and get their name out there, or at least some form of doxing. But yeah, I don't think it's going to stop them.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. There's a material change from here. Like the US isn't going to stop doing what it's doing, and China knows that, and everyone's going to carry on with this quiet cyber warfare. I think it's a bit of a flex, though. It's like they probably feel quite. Has been a slight against them with the huge tariffs that were put on them, and I think they've all been paused on everyone else right now. And China are the only ones who still have them on at the moment. So it's a bit of soft power flexing, in my opinion, that maybe has more of a geopolitical or political goal than it does an actual cybersecurity goal.
Cyberspace.
Okay, so the talking of APTs and nation state groups and just general threat actor groups, we put a call out to our chat at the beginning of this. You could put in today's episode, they've been pretty lively, which has been great. So we asked them, come up with a threat group name for us. If we were APTs, what would we be? Anyone want to read out? Anyone want to? I can read them all out, but I think pick out the ones that have stood out to you. Robbie, I'm going to start with you, sir.
Well, we've had a few little iterations, and we've merged into HoikTML, which is a firm favorite for me. Hacktour as well, which is pretty
that's
good.
a great one.
Yeah, we were a meme group then. We're like
even Doge the Bullet. I got a bit of time for that, actually.
Was the one that started this all off was Trump Typhoon, threat actor group inbound. Bit too political for my liking, but I could see that being a real name. I actually fell for it and Googled it. We've added any more? Otherwise, we have to give the prize. Ciphers Assembled. That's an interesting one. I'm not sure it has the same aggression as the other ones, or lols.
I think HoikTML is winning so far.
HoikTML.
HoikTML.
Yeah. That one came from Hoikeman. And then someone else said, my mate hacked NASA with HTML. So he became HTML. Yeah, that's the winner.
That's a firm favourite. It's got to be the one.
Day Pathfinder. Big up.
Unbelievable.
Right, your prize is prestige amongst the empirical training cyberspace community, and maybe we'll even rebrand this whole podcast as HoikTML. Actually, the more I say it, the more I like it. But until then, this podcast is called Cyberspace. Thank you very much for listening. If you like this, we've got a whole load of episodes, season 1 and 2, on Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you find your podcasts. And if once a week isn't enough for you, well, you can find us every day of the week in our school community. That's school with a K. Throw up your Ks, boys. It's .com/HTM.
We need to change it to /TML. We'll change that.
But we have
Change
to
it to
it costs $100 to do it, but I reckon we should
Worth
just do
worth it.
HTML.
The Hoik Hub. Head over to the Cyber Hub at www.school.com/cybersec, and you'll see us every day of the week. Otherwise, we'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks, gents.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, chat.
Cyberspace.
Do you know what I mean? So like, they're like,
Cyberspace.